What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. For today's video, we are talking about buy low players and sell high players. If you're new, you don't know what these terms mean. Buy low players are players that you probably can get a deal on in a trade. You're likely getting a discount on these players, and I expect them to bounce back. On the other hand, sell high players are players that I consider to be overperforming, players that I believe have unsustainable numbers, and for that reason, you might be able to send them away and get some really good value in return. Now, typically in these videos, I talk about some advanced stats. I've covered this in other videos, but just to give you a little bit of a refresher, these are some of the advanced stats that I'm talking about. Obviously, I talk about deployment, which is a player's ice time, what power play unit they're on. That is very important when we're talking about sell high and buy low players, of course. But the three others that I talk about are shooting percentage, on-ice shooting percentage, and IPP. You guys should know what shooting percentage is. It's a percentage of shots on goal that go in the net, calculated as goals divided by shots on goal. Typically, shooting percentage regresses to the mean, so if somebody has a very high shooting percentage compared to the career rate, you can expect some regression. And also, if someone has a really low shooting percentage, you can likely expect that to bounce back. On-ice shooting percentage is very similar, but instead of only taking a player's shooting percentage into account, it also takes their line mates. So it's the number of goals scored while on the ice divided by the number of shots taken while on the ice. This can help us determine whether a player's line mates are overperforming or underperforming, and obviously that's going to determine impending regression. The last thing we talk about here is IPP, which is a percentage of goals that a player got a point on that were scored while he was on the ice. Typically, you want to compare a player's IPP to previous seasons, and an outlier season can signal good luck or bad luck. Now that we have that out of the way, let's start off with the buy low forwards, players that I am expecting to bounce back and players that you probably can get a pretty good discount on in a trade. Starting off with David Pastrnak, I know he's dealing with an injury. We just got that report today, but it's supposed to be very short term, so I don't have too much concern about this. But looking at the numbers here, he has a 7.8% shooting percentage compared to a 13.7% career rate, and I expect this to bounce back. You can also see that Pastrnak is on pace for only 25 goals, guys. Pastrnak is not a 25 goal scorer, and a big problem for the Bruins has been their terrible power play. With this, he has 5 power play points in 29 games, which puts him on a power play point pace of 14 points. That is not sustainable, guys. And one last thing here as well, he has a pretty low on-ice shooting percentage, so it's not only him that cannot finish, but his line mates as well. If his line mates start to bounce back, this is going to help Pastrnak. Next, we have Filip Forsberg, and listen, guys, I do have my concerns about Nashville. There's no question about it, but we do have to look at the numbers here and say that Filip Forsberg is not a player that's going to put up 49 points this year. That is right, guys. He's on pace for 49 points, only 26 goals. And two things that we can look at here is shooting percentage, 9.2% compared to a 12.9% career rate. And also, he has a very low IPP. This is not sustainable. 51.5% IPP. For a player like him who is driving his line, there is no way that his IPP should be this low. So I'm expecting that luck to turn in his favor. Next, we have Zach Hyman of the Edmonton Oilers. He's already been starting to bounce back. I believe he had 2 goals in the last game. So if he is available on the wire in a shallow league, please add him. I know it might seem crazy to you that Hyman could be available on the wire, but I had 2 separate people ask me on Twitter and Discord about them picking up Hyman. And looking at their team compared to the waiver wire was pretty crazy, guys. Sometimes players like Hyman end up on the wire and they need to be scooped up. In terms of the numbers, we can see his shooting percentage is pretty low compared to his career rate, 9.8 versus 13.5. We can see that he's only on pace for 14 power play points, which is pretty low considering the power play that he's on. And we can also see that his IPP is only 34.3%. It's clear that he's getting unlucky here. He's still line 1 with McDavid on the first power play unit, and there's no way that he's going to only put up 22 goals and a total of 41 points. Buy low or add him if you can. Next up, we have Jason Robertson. Listen, I want to make it completely clear that I'm not expecting Robertson to be the 100-point player that he was 2 years ago, but we do have to address that there's no way he's only putting up 51 points this season. That is right, guys. That is his pace. 51 points, only 18 goals. And we can look at some stats here. We can look at his shooting percentage, only 9.4% compared to a 14.5% career rate. And also his on-ice shooting percentage as well, being only 8.71%. Not only has Robertson had trouble putting the puck in the net, but so have his teammates. So I'm expecting this to turn around very soon. I know Robertson has been dropped in some shallow leagues. I think that's a mistake. I think he's worth holding on to. And we just have to look at the last 3 years and see that Robertson has been a pretty consistent 30-plus goal scorer and 80-point player. So yeah, I'm expecting him to bounce back, not to the levels that we saw 2 years ago, but I could see him putting up a point per game for the rest of the year in terms of a pace. Next, we have Wyatt Johnston. He's already bounced back, so the buy low window is kind of closed, but we can still see that his shooting percentage is fairly low, 8.3% compared to a 13.8% career rate. And right now, he's line one with Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz, and on that top unit as well. So still a fan of trading for Wyatt Johnston or picking him up. Next, we have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins of the Edmonton Oilers. I don't think we're going to see the Nugent-Hopkins of 2 years ago again, but I still think that he is a buy low candidate and that he should bounce back. We can look at a couple of things here. First, shooting percentage, 7% shooting percentage compared to an 11.9% career rate. We can see that he's only on pace for 12 power play points, guys. This is not sustainable for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who's still on that first power play unit. He normally averages around 30, so I'm expecting that to improve for him. And we can also see that his IPP is pretty low as well at 42.4%. So yeah, I mean, as long as he's line one, power play one, there's no reason that he shouldn't bounce back. He's shooting the puck a good amount too. I know he doesn't take a lot of shots generally, but yeah, I do think he's a good buy low candidate, and I am expecting him to bounce back very soon. Next, we have Kevin Fiala of the Los Angeles Kings. Very disappointing season so far for Fiala, but the big thing that we have to look at is his on-ice shooting percentage. 8.7% is very low for Fiala, and the problem is that his teammates cannot finish, guys. His teammates are not putting the puck in the net, and that is affecting Fiala. There's no guarantee that they end up putting the puck in the net and they improve. But like I said earlier, shooting percentage is a luck metric. We can usually see it regress to the mean. So if his teammates start to get going, that is the big factor in Fiala's bounce back. The last thing I want to say is that Fiala is on pace for 53 points, and this is not sustainable. Fiala is not a 53-point player. He's getting the same deployment from last year, a little bit less ice time, but very similar ice time. And I do think Fiala is likely going to put up 65 to 70 points. So you're getting a discount on him, and I think he would be a good target in a trade. Next up, we have Clayton Keller of the Utah Hockey Club. Now, in terms of the stats, they don't scream buy low. The shooting percentage isn't that far off from his career rate, but still it is a little bit less than his career rate. It's definitely much less than it has been in the last 2 years. But the reason that he is a major buy low is because not just looking at the entire season, if we look at a smaller sample size like the last 16 games, he only has one goal. This is unsustainable for Keller. Same ice time, same deployment, very talented player. He's not going to be a league winner or anything, but I do think because he only has one goal in the last 16 games, you're going to get a massive discount on him in a trade, and it could really work out long term. The next batch of buy low forwards is Bo Horvat. I'm not saying he is going to be some amazing fantasy talent, but I do think you're going to be able to get a discount on him, and I do think he will bounce back. 8.5% shooting percentage compared to a 13.4% career rate. Matt Barzal will be returning in the next couple of weeks, I'd imagine, maybe in a month or so, and that's going to help the offense as well. So I do think Horvat is going to score more goals soon, and I do think he is a bounce back player. The next player is Jared McCann of the Seattle Kraken. Unfortunately for McCann, the regression hit. This was to be expected. I talked about this in my last video. And with this regression, he only has 2 points in his last 11 games. With that being said, I am still a fan of Jared McCann. In fact, his ice time has been the best it has ever been on the Kraken. I mean, if you're looking at the last couple of weeks, he has consistently averaged around 18 minutes per game, which is very good for a player like McCann. So yeah, I mean, I just think this last stretch of games, the last 11 or so games, it's not sustainable for McCann, and I'm expecting him to bounce back. Okay, next we have two Nashville Predators players, and listen, I want to preface talking about these players with saying that, yes, I do have my concerns about Nashville. There's no question about it that Ryan O'Reilly, that injury, is a problem for Nashville. They're even more thin at center than they already were. We also have to talk about the lack of even strength protection for a player like Steven Stamkos. We have to talk about the potential chemistry issues. We have to talk about a lot of stuff. Marchessault's new line mates. I understand this, but if you take all that stuff out of the equation for a second and you just look at the numbers, we can say that what we're seeing right now from Marchessault and Steven Stamkos is that it's unsustainable. With Marchessault, he's getting the exact same ice time that he was on Vegas. He currently has a 5.8% shooting percentage compared to an 11.3% career rate and an extremely low on-ice shooting percentage of 7.24%. With Steven Stamkos, a very low shooting percentage for him as well, 10.4 versus 16.5. Very low on-ice shooting percentage. So obviously, he's not able to put the puck in the net, and neither are his line mates. If we see the shooting percentage regress to the mean for Nashville, these players are going to improve in fantasy. The last thing I want to say is that both of them are on pace for 38 points, identical numbers, and Marchessault and Stamkos are not 38-point players. Yes, they could have career low seasons. That's absolutely a possibility, but there is a good chance that they bounce back. And with that being said, you are getting a massive discount on them in a potential trade. The next player I want to talk about is Joel Eriksson Ek of the Minnesota Wild. He is an injury buy low. You're really not going to be trading for him unless you're near the top of the standings and you feel comfortable in trading assets away for an injured player. But realistically for me, Eriksson Ek is on pace for 48 points, which is way too low compared to what he is capable of doing. Eriksson Ek is still in the top 6 on the power play 1, still getting elite deployment. He has a very low IPP of 41.9%, so could be some bad puck luck there. Only 2 power play points as well, extremely low power play point pace, which isn't something that I consider sustainable considering he's on a very good power play on the Minnesota Wild. And yeah, I just think this is a good buy low opportunity, especially if your league heavily values peripherals, because he puts up monster shots, hits, and blocks. Another player that's similar to Joel Eriksson Ek is Vincent Trocheck. I doubt he is a buy low player anymore because he has played very well in the last week or so. The window's kind of closed, but I wanted to mention him because I still like him as an ad if he is available on the waiver wire. The last thing we need to talk about is Connor Bedard. Unfortunately, he is not an official player on this list. Yes, I think his goal scoring is going to bounce back because he has too talented of a shot to be on pace for like 20 goals or whatever the pace he's on for. And we can look at the shooting percentage. A 7.4% shooting percentage is pretty low. So I do expect more goals to come, but I have the concerns with the lack of shots, lack of shot attempts, scoring chances, and the chemistry that he has with his line mates. I understand they have a new coach. They're trying to find a consistent line to put Bedard on, but I have concerns with how bad this team has looked around him. And yeah, so not an official player on this list. I wanted to mention the shooting percentage. You could potentially see a new coach bump, maybe a late season resurgence, right? Bedard could potentially slump a little bit, and then come February or March, we could see him get going. So there is that possibility. So I do think there is a chance he bounces back. I do think there's a good chance, but not enough to potentially trade valuable assets for in a trade. So yeah, I thought I'd just talk about him a little bit. Until I see more shot attempts and scoring chances, I'm not going to be buying low in him. The next thing I want to talk about is some buy low defensemen. The first defenseman on this list being Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I don't think he's necessarily the biggest buy low player. He has 20 points in 26 games. He's played solid in the last 2 weeks. But I wanted to talk about the power play production from him. Currently, he's only on pace for 15 power play points, and I think that's far too low considering how talented that power play is. He was on pace for 35 power play points last year, so I'm expecting more power play points from Bouchard. And also, right now, he has 0 power play goals as well. So expecting to bounce back in that regard, and I still think Bouchard is a 75 to 80 point player. The next defenseman here is Noah Dobson of the New York Islanders. Very low shooting percentage, 2.3 compared to 5.5. He's back in power play 1 recently, which is a good sign. And I think when Matt Barzal returns in the next couple of weeks, that's going to help the offense all around. Overall, this could be a down year for Dobson, but I do expect him to be better moving forward. And he is a player that puts up very good peripherals as well. So he has that safe floor baked in. The next buy low defenseman is Charlie McAvoy. This is probably a down year for McAvoy, but I do expect him to bounce back. And in terms of why I believe that, the first reason is that the Bruins power play currently is unsustainable. It shouldn't be last in the league. They have Pasternak on there. I do think the power play is going to improve. Right now, that power play is 12%, dead last. So yes, that will help McAvoy once his power play gets going. We can also see that McAvoy has a very low IPP of 29.4%. Could mean that he's getting unlucky there. And lately, we've seen Charlie McAvoy shoot the puck more, which is a very good sign to me. So with all that being considered, I do think he's a solid buy low. The next buy low player is Miro Heiskanen of the Dallas Stars. I think the main reason I like Heiskanen still is because he's getting the exact same deployment as he was in previous years. No, he's not a 70-point defenseman anymore, but I do think that his current pace of 42 points is far too low. Realistically, I still think he's a 55 to 60 point defenseman. We can take a look at his IPP right now, which is 31.8%. I think that's pretty low for Miro Heiskanen if you're looking at previous seasons. And in general, I would expect him to produce like he has in the last 2 years, given similar deployment. We will see what happens, but I do think Heiskanen has a good chance at bouncing back and you may be able to get a big discount on him in a potential trade. The next defenseman here is Aaron Ekblad. He's not necessarily a buy low because you could argue with his bump to power play 1, his value is the highest it has been all year, but I still wanted to talk about him. The reason I wanted to talk about him is because he has amazing peripherals. He's getting elite ice time in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, he's now power play 1, and I do think that we're going to see a bounce back when it comes to his goal scoring. He only has 1 goal in 28 games. He has a 2.1% shooting percentage compared to a 6.7% career rate. So I'm expecting to bounce back in that regard. And I'm loving what I'm seeing right now with his deployment. The last defenseman I want to mention here is Justin Falk of the St. Louis Blues. And listen, guys, I am not guaranteeing a bounce back. I understand it has been frustrating to hold Justin Falk. I'm sure a lot of you guys have dropped him already. But we do have to look at some numbers here. He has a 2% shooting percentage compared to a 5.7% career rate, a low on-ice shooting percentage of 7.29%. This could mean he is getting unlucky, and we could see those numbers bounce back. And what we're seeing with Falk is that he's still a player that's getting elite ice time, 23 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time per game. That's almost 3 more minutes than he got last year, or maybe 2 minutes. But either way, the ice time is there. The only thing that I really need to see from Falk is getting back on power play 1. He was on there. Sometimes he would get shuffled around, but then he was injured. And then Parayko was on there. And then Peronovich was on there, I believe, in the last game. So what I need to see from Falk is him getting back on that power play 1. If he is power play 1 and he's still getting this even strength ice time and we're still seeing him take shots, put up shot attempts, then yes, I do expect him to bounce back. Moving on, I want to talk about some of these players here real quick. They didn't make it to the official buy low list for a number of reasons. Some of them, like Verhaeghe, they've been playing really well, so the buy low window is closed. And others like Patrick Kane, I don't want to tell you to buy low in him because I do have my concerns. Different reasons for different players, but I just wanted to include players that I expect to bounce back in the goal department. These are players that have a lower shooting percentage compared to their career rates. And as you guys can see, Carter Verhaeghe, Sebastian Aho, Mika Zibanejad, Nick Schmaltz, Frank Vetrano, and Adam Fox are on here. I'm expecting the shooting percentage to regress to the mean. Let's talk about some sell-high players, okay? Let's start off with these sell-high forwards. Starting off, let's talk about Dylan Strome. I understand he's been very good this year. I do think he probably will have a career year based off of his numbers, but we do have to look at the advanced stats and see that this is likely unsustainable. He has a 21.4% shooting percentage compared to a 15% career rate. He's on pace for 36 power play points, and he has a 17.23% on-ice shooting percentage. Could he put up 80 points? Yes, that's certainly a possibility, but his current pace is 106 points. He has a very unsustainable shooting percentage. Everyone around him has an unsustainable shooting percentage, and he's a player that doesn't put up very good peripherals either. He's also a pure C as well on a lot of platforms, which puts him at a disadvantage. So considering all of these things, yes, you want to sell him high while his value is going to be the highest it is this year. Another center that I think is a massive sell high is Anze Kopitar of the Los Angeles Kings. He has a 24.2% shooting percentage compared to a 13.1% career rate. Terrible shot volume, unsustainable goal scoring, and he also has a 16.47 on-ice shooting percentage as well. So he's shooting at an unsustainable rate, and so are some of the line mates that he's playing with. Right now, he's on pace for 94 points. I don't think Kopitar is putting up 90 points this year. He's more of a 70 to 75 point player with terrible peripherals, so sell high while you can. Next, we have Matt Duchene of the Dallas Stars. I think he's been in every single sell high video. He's still playing good, but unfortunately, the numbers are still unsustainable. 26.1% shooting percentage compared to a 13.5% career rate, so it's almost double his career average. A 15.3% on-ice shooting percentage, so he is overperforming in the finishing department, and so are his line mates. He has 11 power play points in 27 games, which puts him on pace for 33 power play points, despite only averaging 2 minutes and 22 seconds of power play time per game, so that's not sustainable. And if you're looking at his current point pace, it is 88 points. He does not have the ice time, he does not have the deployment, and he does not have the numbers to suggest this is sustainable. So please sell high while you can. Next, we have Ivan Barbashev, who I consider to be a massive sell high. He's on pace for 82 points, despite not being on the power play 1 and not having a path to get onto power play 1. And right now, if you're looking at his numbers, he has a 27.7% shooting percentage compared to his 17.9% career rate. He has an 80% IPP, and he has a 14.46 on-ice shooting percentage. I think there's a good chance Barbashev puts up less than 70 points this year. So if you can sell high and get a good deal in return, I suggest you do so. The next sell high forward is Anthony Cirelli of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yes, he was injured last game. No, I don't have the details just yet. We will see what happens there, but unfortunately for Cirelli, I'm pretty sure his numbers are completely unsustainable. He has a 20.4% shooting percentage compared to a 13.9% career rate, so unsustainable goal scoring, 16.88 on-ice shooting percentage, so his line mates are overperforming as well. He's not power play one. As long as everybody is healthy, he won't be power play one, and I think his current point pace of 78 points is not going to happen. Another sell high forward is Mason Marchment. He's been on my sell high forward list quite a bit, and I'm going to continue to put him on this list because there are a ton of red flags. He has a 19% shooting percentage compared to a 12.3% career rate, unsustainable goal scoring. He has a 15.87% on-ice shooting percentage, so his line mates are overperforming as well. Just talked about Duchesne and his insane shooting percentage, so that's a reason for this on-ice shooting percentage number. He's currently on pace for 85 points despite averaging 15 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time per game. That's not going to happen, guys. I would be surprised if Marchment hit 70 points, to be completely honest with you. It's a possibility, but I think that is his ceiling, his absolute ceiling for this year, guys. Unless the ice time bumped up a lot, there's no way he is going to get close to this number, so please sell high while you can. The only way I would consider holding Marchment is if he got on power play one, but unfortunately, that doesn't look like that's going to happen unless there was a major injury. So yeah, like I said, he is a massive sell high. Another massive sell high is Ken Johnson of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yes, I think he's breaking out. Yes, I think he's going to have a great year. I like his ice time. I like the way he looks out there. But unfortunately, we do have some unsustainable numbers at the moment. He has 14 points in 13 games. That puts him on pace for 88 points. That's not going to happen. He also has an 82.35% IPP, which is very high. Unsure if that is sustainable for him. I highly doubt it. And his shooting percentage is 25.8% compared to a 13.4% career rate. Like I said, Johnson is solid. He is a young player who is breaking out. I like the deployment, but I do think we're going to see him cool down a lot. And he is a player that has very bad peripherals as well. So he's at a massive disadvantage in a lot of leagues, and I do think you should try to trade him while his value is so high. Another big sell high is Mark Stone of the Vegas Golden Knights. Yes, you just returned from a month-long injury, so maybe it might be tough to trade him away for the value that you want, but I had to put him on this list because his numbers are currently unsustainable. Right now, Stone is on pace for 128 points. He has a 21.4% shooting percentage compared to a 15.5% career rate. And even more egregious is his on-ice shooting percentage, which is 20.13%. I do want to say that as long as Stone is healthy, I think he's going to be solid because he's line one with Eichel, because he's power play one. But we are going to see some regression. And if you can trade him for a buy low player that could potentially provide more value long term, you should do it. The next sell high forward is Jake DeBrusk. Listen, I like DeBrusk, and I wish that he could be on power play one for the entire year. But the massive concern that I have is when Miller comes back, he's going to be taken off that first unit, and that's going to tank his value. Maybe it's going to be Garland, but when everyone was healthy, Garland was on that top unit. So that's definitely a concern of mine. And a big thing here in terms of his numbers is his shooting percentage. 19.7% compared to a 12.8% career rate is unsustainable. 14.77 on-ice shooting percentage as well. I think we're going to see him cool down, and I think you may regret not trading him for a buy low player. The next sell high player is Alex Laferriere of the Los Angeles Kings. Unfortunately, he was taken off power play one, so you're unlikely to get anything of significant value for him in a trade unless you're in a more casual league. But I had to include him in this list because he has a 21.2% shooting percentage compared to an 11.8% career rate and a very high on-ice shooting percentage as well at 14.59%. Next, we have Sam Bennett. I understand in a category league, certain leagues, he is a monster, but in a lot of leagues, we do have to recognize that his current production has been unsustainable. He has a 15.9% shooting percentage compared to a 10.7% career rate, pretty high on-ice shooting percentage of 13.24, and a pretty high IPP compared to previous years. So yeah, I do think we're going to see some regression from Sam Bennett, and he is not on power play one as well. So yeah, basically I just think his point production is going to fall off. Still a solid player, especially in a category league, but if you can capitalize on his increased value, it could work out. Another sell-high player is Matvei Michkov of the Philadelphia Flyers. Michkov looks great out there, but we do have to recognize that he has a 22.45% shooting percentage. He has a 13.52 on-ice shooting percentage. Those seem unsustainable to me. I know we don't really have a sample size of his career, but I would expect this to regress. And we do have to recognize as well that a lot of his production has come from the man advantage. Another thing we need to remember is that he is a rookie on the Philadelphia Flyers. Some nights he does not get the best deployment. He's still playing under Torts guys. That is a concern of mine. And even though I think Michkov is going to be solid for the rest of the year, I do think that this may be the highest value that he will have for the entire season. So with that being said, he is a sell high player. Next up, we have Alexei Protas of the Washington Capitals. This one's pretty obvious. He has a 19.6% shooting percentage compared to an 8% career rate. He also has an 80% IPP. And guys, Protas is not an 80% IPP type of player. And he also has a 16.57 on-ice shooting percentage. So yes, he will cool down. We also have Will Kool-Aid of the New York Rangers. I understand he has good peripherals, but right now he has a 19.1% shooting percentage compared to a 13.2% career rate. He has an 80.77% IPP, and Kool-Aid is not the type of player to have that type of IPP. And his on-ice shooting percentage is 13.2 as well. So these are unsustainable. He's not a power play one guy. He's not a guy that's going to get very good deployment. So yes, sell high while you can. Then we have Connor McMichael. I do like his even strength protection. I do like how he's looked out there, but I had to include him here because he has a 19% shooting percentage compared to a 13% career rate and a 13.27 on-ice shooting percentage as well. Then finally, we have Adam Gaudette of the Ottawa Senators. He has a 37.1% shooting percentage compared to a 12% career rate and 88.2% IPP as well. I understand that you're not getting any value for him unless you're in a casual league, but hey, if you're in a casual league and maybe you can try and trade him away for some sort of buy low player, you should do it. Also, guys, two more players here, not necessarily sell highs. I think they both provide a lot of value in fantasy, but I just had to include them on here because I believe their goal scoring is unsustainable. The first is Braden Point. He has a 36.7% shooting percentage compared to an 18.9% career rate. The goal scoring will regress. And then also Alex Ovechkin. I know he's injured, but yes, he has a 23.8% shooting percentage compared to a 13% career rate. So I do expect the goal scoring to come down as well. All right, moving on to sell high defensemen. Only a couple of defensemen on this list. The first one is Shane Gostisbehere of the Carolina Hurricanes. I like the situation that he's in. I like the power play that he's on. The power play is one of the best power plays in the NHL right now. But unfortunately for Gostisbehere, he is a player that doesn't get a lot of even strength ice time. And he's also a player that doesn't put up the best peripherals. With that being said, the major problem that I have with him is his power play production. And this is the case for a player like Martin Necas as well. He has 17 power play points in 27 games, which puts him on pace for 51 power play points. That's not sustainable. That will cool down. And his on-ice shooting percentage is pretty high at 13.35% as well. Next, we have Neil Pionk of the Winnipeg Jets. He's cooled down a bit, but I still think he's a sell high, guys. He has a 7.4% shooting percentage compared to a 4% career rate. He's currently on pace for 62 points. That's not going to happen. And he's also on pace for 16 power play points despite averaging a minute and 29 seconds of power play time per game. I understand the peripherals are good, but I would suggest trading him while his value is still high. Next, we have Jake Wallman. I like him long-term. I have him in one of my leagues. I'm happily holding him, but I do think that he is going to regress a little bit here. He's on pace for 65 points. I don't think that pace is going to continue. I think he's more of a 45 to 50 point defenseman. And we also have to look at his IPP, which is very high right now for a defenseman at 62.5%. I think Wallman's solid. I do have some concerns that sometimes he's not on power play one. But yeah, in general, I just think if you can sell high for a defenseman that you might be able to get a discount on, it could work out. For example, if I can make a Jake Wallman for Noah Dobson trade, I'm doing that all day long. Finally, we have the grand finale of sell high forwards. I understand that since I made that sell high video talking about Martin Necas that he has not slowed down at all. I understand this, but yes, his numbers are unsustainable. He has 19 power play points in 27 games, 7 of these being power play goals. That puts him on pace for 21 power play goals. His previous high was 9. He's also on pace for 57 power play points. His previous high was 26. And we also look at his shooting percentage here, 20.9% shooting percentage compared to a 12.3% career rate, and also a very high on-ice shooting percentage of 16.4%. Now, I want to make it crystal clear that yes, even though I am expecting regression, that doesn't mean I think Necas is going to fall off a cliff. No, I think he's still going to be very solid in fantasy. He looks electric out there. They moved him up to the top line recently with Aho and Jarvis. Don't know how long that's going to last, but that's obviously very good news for his value. This power play looks incredible, even though I think it will cool down. Being on a power play that looks that good is very solid. And yeah, he's a young player who is breaking out. I like Necas but we do have to see his numbers and say that he will cool down. Knowing that he's going to cool down, I do think he is a solid sell high player. However, only sell Necas for elite talent. I'm not telling you to sell Necas for Jason Robertson. No, I wouldn't do that. But if I can trade Necas for a player like David Pastrnak, I am doing that all day long. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, I can't do that in my league, but some of you guys can. I know some of you that watch are in casual leagues and can make a move like that. So yes, I would do a trade such as Necas for David Pastrnak. It also depends on your league size, but could I trade Necas for Philip Forsberg and Zach Hyman? Like, that's a trade I would potentially consider doing. You can get creative with some of these buy low players with Martin Necas. I have no problem with you holding on to him because I think he looks great out there. And obviously he's leading the NHL in points right now, or maybe he's second now. I get it, but listen, the numbers are unsustainable, and I do think you should capitalize on his increased trade value. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Put a lot of research into these players. I hope you can make some good trades. Comment below some trade ideas, some trade advice. I'll be happy to answer. And hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. Hit that like button while you're at it. And I will catch you in the next one.